Okay, so welcome to Let's Go Live with Gigi Meyer and Spicy contemporary and rom-com author Stella Stevenson. Okay, so tell everybody what your handle
I am
is
most active
and your
here
website
and on
and where they can
TikTok.
find you.
My handle for both is Stella Stevenson Writes, all one word. I have a Facebook page that I never touch, so it's like not worth it to find me there, or on my website. Right. I don't know what I'm doing there. If it doesn't go from Instagram to Facebook, it's not happening. Or on my website, which is authorstellastevenson.com. So.
Yeah. All right. So you'll see in the comments, like people may wave or they may ask questions. So if I don't see it, go ahead and pick it up and we can answer as we go also. Okay, so I already introduced, you write spicy contemporary romance. So what does that mean? Because everybody has like a different definition.
So
it's
I
kind of broad
usually best
category.
describe
And
my style in terms of other authors, which sounds kind of weird, but it helps people like get a gist. This is not me saying that I write like them potentially, but if you think of like Ali Hazel, I would say so like an Ali Hazelwood level. So like, is there a ton of spice? No, but when it's there, is it descriptive, steamy, graphic? You know, is there building? Yes. I do think the books I write are getting progressively steamier, which my mom might have to stop editing them for me.
Your mom, wait, don't
she's not
that
my like
one
formal
in.
editor. I have
Your
a formal editor, but she's like my reader, my like first critique person. She was an English professor until she retired. So, I mean,
okay, one, I love that because I have 3 teachers, literally my sister and 2 nieces, and I'm like, hey, do you want to edit? And they're like, God, no. Oh, don't ever ask me. And they kind of like avoid it at Christmas when I ask them every year. But then I also have an 83-year-old mother who tells me that no one wants to buy books with shirtless men on it. They're like, oh
when my dad reads my books, I'm like, Dad, can you just skip chapters 12, 16, 18, skim 21? He's like, no. I told everyone I work with, I'm like, Dad, no, like, can we not?
Okay.
I don't want to know. Nope, I don't want to know.
What if they're getting tips?
I send her like chapters sandwiched within others. So I'm like, go ahead and mark stuff if you see it, but for the most part, if it's fine, we're not discussing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like that don't ask, don't tell. So drink coffee. Oh, your books are absolutely on the Ali Hazelwood level.
Right.
Oh man,
I said I love specific commentary, not just Ali Hazelwood.
Say that again.
Thank you. But yes. So,
okay, and then rom-com
is like it's lighthearted, it's fun, it's like the binge-worthy type. Like think like of a rom-com movie, right? Instead of being The Notebook, which is like beautiful and heart-wrenching and ends with a happily ever after, it's like 27 Dresses with Katherine Heigl. Like you're supposed to laugh, and it's not all that deep. And some of my books have some insta love. Some don't. It's a trope that I appreciate in the romance genre, but it's not always something I specifically write.
Then what's your favorite, spicy or contemporary?
If it has romance in it, I will read anything. I just finished reading a series of Amish romance, which obviously doesn't have spice, but there's
girl, right? I had no idea. And then I had someone on last year before Christmas, Books with Sally. She is a phenomenal bookstagrammer. And she was like, yeah, I'm getting into this
okay,
Amish
well, I have
romance.
to admit that I totally picked up the books because when I was 12, I too once loved an Amish boy, and it would have never worked out because we were on like a school field trip, and obviously we weren't staying there, and I was never going to live in the Amish community. But for 20 minutes, I thought he was the love of my life, so I had to read. And they're super cute. Like, they're very, very cute.
Do you live near Amish? I'm in Houston, Texas.
Coast,
There's not a Amish
but I grew up in Princeton, New Jersey. So like it was drivable to Amish country. It was like one of those like 8th grade, put everyone on the bus and drive them. Was I 12 in 8th grade? Maybe somewhere in middle school, right? Put everybody on the and drive to Amish country. Like one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a
Amish farms. Tour? Well, okay, so I should preface this by saying I went to Catholic school. So there was a lot too of like, yeah, I went to Catholic school. And now I write spicy novels. But there was a lot of like religion, Christianity. They made us do some project where we like took pictures and paired it with Bible verses, like that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I fell in love with an Amish boy and ate pie.
Of course. Okay, so I'm 4th generation Lutheran, so we're like a sliver away from Catholic. And I'm convinced there's a saint and sinner in every one of us, so I am not to judge. I should go to church on Sunday and write spicy romance Sunday night.
I went to Catholic school, but like it's like Catholic light, more food, less kneeling. And my mom actually an ordained priest, the same one who reads the novels for me, is.
Girl, you're blowing my mind. Wait. Mm-hmm. So you have an ordained priest that reads your spicy romance.
And if you need a visual of my dad, he looks like Santa Claus, and he's basically Sheldon from The Big Bang. So yeah, it's a fun time over here. And then my husband is like super, super supportive, but he's not a reader, so like he doesn't read them, but he talks through plot lines with me. Exactly.
But you know, like romance, 80% of romance are females. I was like, who are the 20? I've never met a 20% of boys that read anything, romance.
So like I'm not offended. I'd rather have him like not read it than have me like force him to and have him be like, yeah, that was great. Yeah. What he would do.
Would he be like, is this us?
He might feature very heavily in my first book as like the main male character. There's a lot of similarities there, so he doesn't need to read that one. I feel like I have told him at some point, but that doesn't mean he actually listened. It was really awkward when my like sister-in-law read the book and was like, this man is dreamy, and I was like, maybe because you're married to his brother and they must be somewhat similar, right? Like that's a thing.
That is so funny. Like her book boyfriend is
not
in secret your husband.
But a little bit. Pieces.
Yeah. So what made you even write this genre? There's so many, right? So
like, I'll read it, but I can always come back to like the book that you pick up and you read in a single plane ride, or like you pick up and you literally have to read into the middle of the night until you're done. You just like front to back. It doesn't take 3 days. I mean, well, that's not like anybody can read at their own pace, but for me in particular, it was the kind that I could just bring home and read front to back. And it has a cute story and it's a little steamy. And like with the illustrated covers or the rom-com aspect, I could usually sneak it around to my mom when I was younger, right? Like, oh, it's innocent, Mom.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's always been my favorite to read, which I think is why it's probably my favorite to write.
So, and I read a lot of different genres. The only thing I probably don't read is I don't really read mysteries. I don't even know why. And I definitely don't read horror because, no. Like I live already inner city. I
wish that I was a better reader of other genres. I will read most subgenres of romance, but if there isn't at least like a main romantic plot somewhere, I lose interest.
You're like, I'm out. Well, I'm in 2 different book clubs, and it's never romance. I'm just like, we're reading Hillary Clinton's, but okay, I'll read hers. But it does, you do get exposed to like some really talented writers, and so I feel like in a way well, I hope it makes me a better writer.
Yeah,
I hope it gets rid of
I
my filler
will
words,
branch
but I don't
out,
know.
but it's definitely rare. The majority of my bookshelves and my Kindle are full of happily ever afters.
I love that, especially nowadays where there's so
Exactly.
much.
We
Oh
all
my
need
gosh, sometimes like
oh, this is what
life can
works
be
for me.
too
And so
lifey.
whatever that is for other people,
Yeah,
that's perfectly fine. But these will.
yeah.
Yep.
Mama who
Exactly.
reads says, if there's no romance, I'm out.
So I
So
actually
how did you get
had a
started writing
minor
in
in
the first
creative writing in
place?
college. I've been writing since I was 4. Actually,
Girl.
so I've been writing since I was 4. This is just like because
Mad
it's here. Let's see if I can
respect.
grab it. This is probably like one of my first books I ever wrote. It says first there was a fishy and her mother,
That
and they
is
ate other
so
fish and they went to the
cute.
park to play. So yeah, I was super talented as a child. And I mentioned, yeah, well, we just recently, my
That
dad
is so
they're selling like
sweet
my
that you
childhood home.
kept
So we just
that.
recently helped go through all the boxes. And my parents have kept everything. So I had to like tag and take all the like author, writer things. But I mentioned like my mom was an English professor and my dad is a professor of oceanography. And I grew up with a library in my attic. And so I grew up with my mom reading me like Shakespeare and Delaire's Greek myths and my dad reading. And so like
Oh my
one time would
gosh.
be like, okay, everybody
For
grab a book.
Dr. Seuss.
uh, we did. My dad is a very big Star Trek fan,
Did
so
you
we
have
did
a
have a
TV in the
television.
home?
But I mean, like some of my first memories of like watching movies would be watching Jane Eyre with my mom as she prepped to teach classes on it. So like she'd obviously be teaching the book, but they would also be watching one of the films. So like I would be sitting there watching it with her. So like reading, right. And so when I
How
went
can
to
you not
college,
love Jane
I
Eyre?
majored in English,
Yeah.
as many do when they don't know what else they want to do. And because I knew I liked to read, so why not? And as a freshman, I talked my way into a reading class that was meant for upperclassmen because it sounded interesting. And I was diehard gonna have only classes on Tuesday, Thursdays. Like I was gonna make it happen so I could have Monday, Wednesday, Fridays with nothing. Yep. I had to submit a
Like
writing
a typical
sample and they
college
wanted
student.
like a fiction sample because it was a fiction class with like workshopping. I did. I went back to my dorm and I wrote a half a story and sent it in. And I had to sit down with him for a while because he was like, I want to be sure that you're prepared because we do workshop and like we do critique and we open it up for older students because it can be kind of harsh if you're not expecting it. And I was like, nope, I'm ready. So after that class, you can't major in creative writing at the school I went to. It's just there's not enough coursework. But I took it on and did the minor. So, and then I put it away and I taught for several years and I didn't do anything with it. And then I had 2 kids and I was home and they finally were sleeping somewhat regularly and I had some time and wrote a book. No,
Two
I did
questions.
not.
Did you go to the school that your parents taught at?
Yeah. So by the time I went to college,
like,
my mom was no longer
a little too much
teaching, which
togetherness.
helped a little bit. And my dad is oceanography, but yeah, no, I didn't. They were like, it was like, if I don't go anywhere else, I'll go where they go because I know that they'll let me go there, right? Like my safety. And it's not a bad school. But I decided to go elsewhere. So.
So you're a former teacher.
Kindergarten.
What grades were you, or what subjects were you teaching?
Yeah.
Oh, the babies, the little ones. So is it really, my sister has taught kindergarten all the way up to fourth, and she's now stuck at fourth. She says, I can't get thrown up on or
It
have
never
boogers
bothered
on
me.
my skirt
Maybe,
anymore.
maybe it would bother me more now that I have like two of my own at home, and now that there's more of a difference between like my children's boogers versus like other children's boogers. But I really like little ones. I mean, like you couldn't pay me enough money to go to middle
Right.
school. You could like power to those teachers. I couldn't do it. Try. I'm terrified of middle schoolers. Terrified
No,
of middle
no,
schoolers.
yeah.
They're scary. So
Well, they're all on like Instagram and TikTok
can you
doing
teach
makeup
me
videos, and I'm
now?
just like, my gosh, how did y'all grow up so fast? Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I can't do any of
I
that because
like
I'm
the
like, I
little
got
ones. The
wrinkles
boogers
and it
never
gets into
bothered me. I
creases, and
think
yeah.
they're cute. I mean, like, I really loved when for a while, I taught like pre-K in the local school districts. I loved that. They're just cute.
Because they're so
And a lot of them,
sweet,
that's what they need,
like
right?
you
Like
almost are
they
like
have
a
a
second
lot of time
mama to
outside
some of these
school,
kids.
and there's an academic push
Hmm.
definitely, but it's not quite as scary as it is once you get like up past kindergarten.
Yeah, yeah. So you left that, had your babies, and then you write when you're not, well, I mean, you're always
Yeah,
a
so my
mom,
kids right
but
now
so
are
you
3.5
write
and 2,
here, there,
so
and
you can
everywhere,
do the
huh?
math on that one. Um, but my 3-year-old doesn't sleep anymore, but he still does like a
So
quiet time in the
sweet.
afternoon after preschool, and the 2-year-old still naps. So when they go down for nap and my husband's at work, I have like 2 hours in the middle of the day that I can write, and then it's after they go to bed.
But that's tricky because literally you're having to schedule your creativity. So how do you do that? Are you kind of,
So
are
I've
you a plotter
actually
or a
thought about this a
pantser? Do you
lot,
marinate
and
it
I
on
gave a
throughout the
public
day? Or how
apology
does that
because for the
work?
longest time I thought I was a straight pantser, and
Mm-hmm.
that was a lie. I'm kind of in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, when I write my stories, they marinate for a very long time. Like the idea will strike, and then I kind of think about it, and then maybe the characters get names, and I'm still thinking about it. And after maybe 6 months, I'll be like, okay, I know where this is going, and I'll do, like a tiny outline. Where's it going to start? Where's it going to end? Like, why is this important? What are they each learning? And then I just write it as it goes. Occasionally, like if inspiration strikes me somewhere and I'm out, I'll jot a note on my phone so I won't like fully forget it. But 90% of the time where I think a chapter's ending, my character's like, forget that one. And I have to replot the whole thing anyways. So, like, probably somewhere in between, I guess.
Isn't that the magic? I read Stephen King's book on like, I think it's called Memoirs or How to Write a Memoir or something like that. And I wish I kept it because I'd love to reread it. But he had talked about that. He had said at some point, if
Yep.
you're good enough at it, your characters will literally walk across the pages for you. And I call that the magic because they do. There's certain things when you do such good character development, you know what they
Yep.
will and
I
won't do. And
say as a
sometimes they do
romance author,
things
it's
and you're
probably
like,
the two. Like, put your clothes back on.
we're not
Get
doing
away from
that.
her. This is fine. Fine. That tends off page. Um, so yes,
I
like I
know.
have enough there that I have a general idea. When I was just like free writing, I found that I spent a lot more time on like second draft, third draft, fourth draft because I didn't have arcs for characters. I'd get to the end and they'd be together and I'd be like, only one of them had any sort of growth. And it wasn't real growth because I didn't even think about it. And I'd have to go back. So I do find that having like some general guideline,
No, I love that. So not only does your
And
story
it
obviously
helps.
have a
I think it
story
helps
arc,
figure
but
out where
you
they're
also work
going.
on your
And I
character
definitely find that they
arcs.
speak to me more. If I know, she's supposed to start thinking maybe she'd want a relationship at about this point in the story, it helps guide the conversations that my characters have. And like kind of rejigs how things work. And almost any time that they take over and do something different, it's 100 times better than what I was going to make them do anyways.
It is. And like I said, that's where the magic comes, because then it's just so organic and it comes through. Now, sometimes they can kind of write you into a corner and you're like, how do I back this up a few beats?
That usually becomes the like, that's a problem for future me. Right. Sometimes it means taking a break and like rejigging the end. The novel I'm working on for June, there was a point in time where like they were supposed to, not like a third act breakup because they aren't together, but they were definitely supposed to separate. And it didn't. It didn't happen. Nope, he was not willing to let her walk away at that point in time. And so I had to take a couple like days off and kind of think about what that would mean and like how that would change like the plan, and if it needed to change the plan. And what we came back with was stronger than what it had been. So like, yeah, he knew what he was doing. I should have listened.
That's awesome. Okay, so do you then, pardon me. So then what do you find the most challenging in writing? Like what's the easiest and what's the most challenging?
The ideas and like the physical writing of it can come the easiest when I'm in the zone, if that makes sense. So like if I'm feeling good about it, things can just flow and it's beautiful. I, despite being an English major, am horrible at grammar and horrible at spelling. Like, don't ask me where commas are supposed to go. I read sentences and I sprinkle commas across them like, I don't know, fairy dust where you should breathe. Like, it is correct. I don't think I've ever used a comma correctly in my life. So self-editing is torture for me because I can't do it, which is where my
It is challenging. Do you use any editing software to kind of help? I
try not to look at it at all until my first draft is completely done. Push forward.
I'm convinced the editor will
I have to
kill
learn
the
the hard way
author.
that like I have to write, for me personally, this like everybody has their own style, but I have to write linearly. I can't do that thing where you like put in a block that's just like, write something funny here. Like I can't do that. It doesn't work for me. I have to sit with it. And even if it ends up changing, like I need something on the page for that. And I can't look at my mom sometimes, like when I'm sending her stuff for plot or like my alpha reads, they'll be like, did you want me to correct typos? I'll be like, nope, I don't care. Just don't touch it. Don't touch it. We'll deal with it on the next round. I do. I have tried.
So do you write in Word or Scrivener?
Most of my stuff is also backed up onto Google Docs because my main critique partner, who is not related to me, works best in Google Docs. But I don't know if it's just like habit or comfort, but Word is what I grew up writing in and like knowing about. So I just keep going back to Word.
I'm the same. Like, as a self-published author, there's a million tools and a million different, I don't know, apps and things that we already have to use. I'm just going to stick with Word. It's super easy. You can zip it off to your editor. You can send it to your proofreader. Everybody has Word. Scrivener, I've seen it. I have it. But there's a learning curve. And I'm like you. I can't take like this scene and move it 4 chapters over. And then, I marvel at people
I
that
spent
can,
like 3
up,
months
put it back
on
together
the beginning
like
of Mother Knows Best, knowing
like
that I had to cut my entire first chapter and just not being willing to do it until I found it. Just, I just didn't start it right.
Was it
like
not
there was no need for
it? Not where you want to start the story?
That needed to be out there about what she was doing and why, and it didn't need to be there because all of that information was already given. It was stronger to jump in. It wasn't so much an information dump because there was like action happening, but it was so not important to what the actual story was that it was just prolonging, introducing her, introducing him, and introducing them together. It wasn't helping. So I ended up pulling it, and it's now on my website as like a bonus, like prologue, come read it if you want to. But I was like, nope, can't cut it. Nope, can't cut it. Nope, I'm going to regret it. And then finally cut it and felt a lot better about it.
I understand because mother knows best.
So it released on the 28th of February.
Tell us when.
So just over a week ago, I think. So it is, the paperback is for sale anywhere on almost all online retailers, and the ebook is exclusive to Amazon and in KU.
Awesome. Yes. So those KU people can have it immediately. And so talk to us about that book, because she's an overweight character, which I feel is very underrated in the market.
It's very near and dear to me. I'm a bigger girl myself, and I feel like, especially now with the way social media has gotten, there's a lot more discussion about body positivity and like kind of breaking down diet culture and like just allow people to be happy with who they are. And I know that there has also been a big push in the like author world to write these larger characters, more diverse characters. And so it was important to me to write her in a way that, like, even if other people, because, you know, warnings, not everybody is okay with her size and her looks, but the people who matter don't care. And the friends that she has, and even, I mean, the title kind of tells you that the mother there is an issue, and even when she has issues, it's not size related. And so it was really important to me to have a book loved exactly for who she was and showed her being confident, while also still showing some of the reality that like fat and plus size women go through, especially. And I liked the idea, I'm like tooting my own horn here, but I like the idea that, like, when you think of Hollywood and you think of like reality shows, how many times have they put like a size 6 person out there and said, she's the plus size one, see, she's bigger, and she's like, no, like they're beautiful women. Yeah. But like that idea too. And so she's on this show, she's hired to be on this show. She's not there of her own free will. And also the idea that, like, it's great to be diverse, but what is also the problem when the network is hiring her to say, we want to reach out to people who are bigger sizes, but the only way we can think to do this is to pay you so that you have to be there, because even we don't have faith that you would stay or win or like make it very far. So yeah, just it's an important part of who she is. This kind of, for all the other things that she struggled with, her size, her weight, her shape is not one of them. And I thought that was an important story to tell. I thought this particular book was a good one to tell it in.
I love it. When I saw your blurb and kind of the synopsis, I was like, this is genius, because it's so reflective of where we're at now and hopefully where we're going. I mean, we need the right people that are our circle of influence that we see every day.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and there will always be people who don't like that or don't agree with that, but I think the more that we get to read about those characters, or we see them on TV, or just like accept that people have different body styles, and that could be for whatever reason, then the better that is for everybody. So, and I kind of tried to lean into, it's in my dedication a little, that like AJ is plus size, but this kind of applies to any body issue we're having, right? Whether you're too big, too skinny, too little, too like dark, too light, too whatever, we can all just be confident and have a spot and earn like love. Not even earn it, like we're still worthy of it regardless of what we look like and who we are.
Yeah, diversity is beautiful. I mean, when you see ads and you see obviously more people represented, it just makes it just more beautiful. Mm-hmm. No one wants to see the same, I guess, what were they, like the Victoria's Secret models, were they all kind of like the same, except for maybe like their hair color was different? Nobody wants to see that. But that was when Victoria's Secret was run by an old man. He was like 82.
And like, I mean, not that this is based on The Bachelor, but isn't there a running joke about how The Bachelor always looks the same? Like, it's the same guy every time.
Yeah, it's the same women and the same men. Yeah, every time.
So, you know, this book kind of was born out of my relationship with my own mother-in-law, but also in college.
Read it? Does she?
Yep, she
see herself in it. Does she know?
I don't know if she sees herself. She's not horrible, but she's very opinionated. My husband is my high school sweetheart. Aww. And there was a period of time where when he indicated that he wanted to propose, their response was, "Why? Are you sure? Should you?" And like, we've been together like 10 years because we've been together since high school. So it was a little bit of that, right? The questioning. And he, like, I mean, Lord love him. He was just kind of like, yeah, her. What? And she's been a lot better since I've been in the family.
Oh, but I'm sorry, it shouldn't be like that.
But everybody deals with something. So the mother aspect of the story was inspired by her, but part of the other aspect was inspired by watching a season of The Bachelor with my college roommate who was obsessed, I loved her. But there was this one contestant who was awful. Like, just every week we tuned in to be like, did she get sent home yet? Did he figure out that she's awful? Did he figure out that she's horrible? And some poor sucker of a girl would go crying to The Bachelor about how horrible and fake this woman was, and she'd get booted while the horrible and fake woman stayed. And we looked at each other and we were like, what do you want to bet that she's being told that she has to act like this? Because if someone isn't awful, if there isn't someone awful,
drama, there's nothing to tune into to watch.
And so that kind of started spinning the wheels of like, well, if they would pay someone, I mean, we have zero proof that this is happening, right? Like, this is not me saying that I have insider information.
Yeah, hypothesis.
Right. If they were willing to pay someone to be dramatic, why wouldn't they be paying other people? Why wouldn't they be hiring the people they want? Why wouldn't they be treating this as a job when we know that contestants are on there for a job, Mm-hmm. So that was like the mesh of those two. Kind of.
So how long? Okay, so you had said before, your ideas kind of can marinate over the course of months. Mm-hmm. So how long did you marinate on this, and then how long did it take you to write it?
So, oh God, I'm totally going to date myself on the internet. But so I graduated from college about 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And so this book started the idea of what if, and this could make, at the time that it happened, my husband graduated a year ahead of me. So we were dealing with a lot of, he was buying a house, mm-hmm. and he was to me for house shopping advice. And his mom was like, why are you asking her? I can help you. And he was like, well, she's going to live there.
Yeah.
So it was like those two mixing that really started the idea. And then I shelved it for a while because it wasn't going to go anywhere. And when I to write again, this was the book I sat down with. So I know it's not the first one I published, but it's the first one that I wrote when I sat down again. And that was last January. And I drafted it in about 6 weeks.
Oh my gosh, that's fast.
Yeah.
How many words roughly?
It is about 74,000 finished.
In 6 weeks, first draft. That's crazy. I know. I was gonna ask if you dictate or do you type?
I'm the world's worst dictator. You don't want me to try that. No, I type it. I type in spurts, so I can bang out a draft in 6 to 8 weeks, and then I take a month and a half off from writing anything else. I'll edit. Editing is not quite the same as the intense drafting.
Totally different brain. My editor's that is the stupidest thing ever. Why would you write that? But of course my author's sure, they can have purple skin and 3 eyes. Okay.
Yeah. So this book I started in January. I remember I started it. I usually watch TV, I have television on, and I was watching the show alone. My husband would go to bed, and it's the show about people who are dropped in the wilderness with nothing by themselves for however long they can last. So I would watch that and draft, and I was done with it about mid-February, and then I didn't start drafting my next book until May.
Amazing though. Okay, so tell us the books you have published in publishing order first.
Okay, so in publishing order, I have 2 published, and I have a third that is, well, I have several planned. I've got 2 published and one that...
And we'll talk about the June, because I want to hear about that.
So the Trope was published in November, the end of November 22nd, and Mother Knows Best was published February 28th, and the Escalation Clause is scheduled to release on June 13th. And then I've October, a possible holiday novella, and then probably a January or February of next year.
Okay. So Mother Knows Best was February. And then you're publishing again in June. So is that book done? Where are you at in the writing process?
That book, this has been the hardest one for me because for the most part, I draft really quickly and then I set it aside for several months.
Yeah.
This is the one that I was like, well, I can draft in this amount of time and I can edit in this amount of time and it takes this amount of time for publishing. So that's my timeline. And I started writing it in January. So it is done. It is edited. It is with beta.
Girl, it's March like 9th.
But it was tough. It was like a disaster. I got to the point where I would be sitting in front of my computer and like I could not make myself type words. And I was like, should I handwrite it? Should I try dictating? Because I cannot get this book out and I have used up all of my it's okay, you've got time days.
Okay, so if we can back up here. I'm still shocked that you've written, okay, how many words is this?
So the Escalation Clause is currently sitting at just under 70,000 words.
In 2 months. No, wait. You said it's written and edited.
Yes. I mean, I still have some things I'm adding, but it's complete.
That's
complete.
Crazy fast.
The Trope took me 4 weeks.
4 weeks?
Yeah.
And you're a mama, and you're married, and I'm sure they all want to see you.
Don't sleep. That's probably the biggest secret. Yeah, and then I have a book coming out in October. That one's done. And
that one's done too?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, mad respect. I think you need to share tips and tricks and like a day in the life of Stella, bringing these out. I know, right? No way you wrote that masterpiece in 4 weeks. That's what Dave Coffee said.
Dream. I think the issue is that like I can't really give tips because it's just the way I work, if that makes sense. Like, and I never want another author to feel like they have to do what I do because I have mad respect. Like my main critique partner writes a book a year and I have so much respect for her and her books are so beautiful. And I have like, there's zero, I mean, her books are also like 150,000 words. So I guess she's writing like, I write like 2 books for every 1 book she writes.
Is she fantasy or is she romance?
She's a fantasy.
Yeah.
Fantasy.
Lots of world building, magic systems, depending on.
Yeah, and so, but so like when people say it's just how my brain works. Like once I've percolated that idea to death, it's there, and I feel the need to just kind of push through it, if that makes sense. I also don't sleep, like ever. I also do have that like built-in time when my kids are sleeping and my husband's not at home, but I can't go anywhere because they're still here sleeping. So like,
I know, but I can make 1,000 excuses not to, I'm like, the laundry, or I should vacuum, or what's going on social media, and like that 2 hours can go by in a blink.
Oh, it can, which is why the June book has been the hardest because I haven't been able to say, oh, today's just not the day, or like this month is just not the month.
Yeah.
Because I had the deadline.
You are human like the rest of us.
Okay. So very much so. But like, I mean, I thrive on that. I thrive on writing quickly. I type pretty fast, which is also just, you can practice and get faster, but I do think some of it is just how people, but also, again, my books are kind of like short and sweet. So once the idea is there, the push to get all the way through it is pretty quick.
So when you when you have your 2-hour writing sprint, if you will, how many words is that on average can you get in?
So if I like really stick to it, I try to do 20-minute sprints at a time. So like I set my timer for 20 minutes, write for 20 minutes. I will pause the timer, like if I have to look something up or like check something. Yeah. I try ahead of time, like when I know it's coming, but you always have to check stuff. So if I know to check, I'll pause it because everyone gets sucked into social media. But I can do roughly 760 words in that 20-minute time frame.
Dang, girl.
Yeah. I didn't a lot until I shared that number at one point and people were like, what? I was like, okay.
In 20 minutes. In 20 minutes.
But again, part of the way my brain works is that I've basically watched my books like a movie. And so I'm writing something, like I'm not figuring out what's going to happen, because even when they've gone off book for me, they've done it in my head. So like I just have to kind of sit down and dictate what I've seen happen.
Like a court reporter.
Yeah, pretty much. And we've mentioned that the grammar and spelling is atrocious, so it's not like I'm worrying about any of that stuff. And then I take like a 5-minute break to drink some water and scroll social media, and then I start over.
And you just use the timer on your phone. Okay, I like that. So you have a book in June, and then you said you have one coming out in October.
Mm-hmm.
It's already done.
Yep.
So it's already done. Why October?
So the one there actually is, and it plays into why I killed myself writing The Escalation Clause, and it's because the book in October is called On Ice, and it's a hockey romance, and so very strongly that it should come out at the start of hockey season. It felt like the right move, right?
Yeah.
I know
hockey romances are hot right now.
So hot, and people read them any time of year, but I really wanted to release it like right around when the season started. Not necessarily because it lines up to the start of the book, but just because it felt like a good time frame for that book.
Yeah.
And left this gap from February to October, and like June is right in the middle there, and so The Escalation Clause is like a summer wedding romance on the Cape, which is just like perfect slotted in.
You're like for hitting everyone.
I had to, right? The idea came first, and once I had the idea, I said to my husband, I was like, look, I have a book on one of the side characters from Mother Knows Best, and it is written, like it is done, and I could not stress myself out, and I could push that for June because I do have a hole. Like I do have a hole in June, and I've got books written, so I should do something with that. And I was like, the idea is just so perfect for that time of year that like I have to do it. I have to do it. And even he agreed, and he like never he's usually like, is this a good idea for you? Are you sure?
And then you want to do one in December, like a holiday theme. But is that one percolating, or is that in draft?
That one is not written if I decided to do it. The idea is there. The like catalyst, and this is how it usually starts. It usually starts with like the story catalyst, which is the meet cute or like the main thing that kind of sparks the issue. And that idea is there. And since the October book is written, and I'm hoping that this would be short, I think I'll be able to get it written and like ready to go maybe for December, but I'm not promising. It can always wait till next year if it has to.
Okay, so what is not short, or what is short to you? How many words is that?
Probably like what, 20, 25,000? Like what's a novella?
20? A novella.
Yeah.
A
novella, not like a short novel, like a short.
But that's a really, really popular, especially if you get it in Christmas theme. Yeah. And I think I saw this last year where they were promoting Christmas books like in October.
Yeah, and so when I published The Trope, I actually ran into that a lot, where like everybody was already recommending Christmas books, and I was like, my book's not a Christmas book. Did I make a mistake? What did I do?
I don't think so. Like, there's readers like me, I don't want to read holiday books. Like, I feel like between the children activities and church and family and all the parties and my gosh, Hallmark runs, you know, I'm like, I don't want to read. I want to read spicy.
I mean, like my own release went off without a hitch, but once the idea hit and it's a holiday idea. Like it won't fit.
Yeah.
Be central to the idea. But yeah, like this idea of just like slotting a mini book in there when it is super popular and people will pick it up. And even if it only kind of does sales during that holiday season and then kind of tapers off again, like they usually then pick
those Christmas books, they are hot, hot, hot. I mean, my gosh, if you can write, they are an easy sell. An easy sell.
And I figure, again, with how quickly I handle like plotting, that I can get it done, probably.
Yeah.
But it's like it's the bottom of my like to-do list for the publishing year.
If you get there, you get there.
Exactly.
So where do your ideas come from? They're so unique. Well, we know about Mother's Knows Best, but the trope.
Yeah, the trope.
The one in June.
Where did the trope come from? The trope was like a fever dream, and it was at the time when I was just finishing up Mother Knows Best. Like I was finishing up writing it, and I was in that phase that I think a lot of us go through even when we choose to do indie, where it was like, what do I do with it next? Do I publish it? Do I query it? Do I like, now what? Like I have it. I didn't think I'd get to this point.
Like, ta-da, here it is.
Yeah, so I started paying attention to like how people were like marketing books and what seemed to be popular. And that was at the time, and I feel like it's settled down a little bit even since last year, but it was at a point in time where, especially on TikTok, everybody was pitching books by trope and like almost exclusively by trope. And I personally think there's a lot of value in talking about tropes, but it was like all people talked about. It was like, this book, it's this, and that was the only information you got.
And if you don't have it categorized in the right trope, they will come with your pitchforks and torches.
But I started seeing all these books, and it was like, well, how would you combine multiple of these? Like, well, what if your goal in life was literally just to do tropes? So the trope was born of what if there was an author who didn't know what to do with herself in actual real life love? And so the only guidebook she had to go off of was tropes, and they should work because when she reads about them, they work. But I didn't want them to be the tropes that we're all used to. So she's anxious and she's socially inept and she's completely lost in her own head, and she's convinced that the best way to make herself a better writer and to catch the eye of the man that she's been in love with her entire life is to fake date him, because in books when that happens, they always fall in love. And if she plays out these scenes, she knows how they're going to end, and she's missing entirely the point that real life isn't like that. And just reading books and like reading tropes hasn't taught her any of this so far, and she completely misses the actual person who was perfect for her. And so that one was kind of literally built out of just spending hours seeing people pitch tropes. That's all it was. Just tropes.
I love that though, because I don't know if there's another romance book like that.
So part of the reason I chose to publish it first was Mother Knows Best was a little more near and dear to my heart with my own like personal like additions to it. But also I knew anytime I mentioned my thoughts for writing the trope, people were like, where is it? Like, where can I would like it.
Nice.
I was like, it's catchy. The blurb is catchy. The idea behind it is catchy. And so that's a really great foot to put forward when I'm my own person. And it worked out pretty well. So yeah, that's where that one came from. The escalation clause was like a meet cute in my head. I started watching a lot of like Law and Order, and it's a meet cute about like
Law and Order is not meet cute.
Unless you're like me and you spent your entire career waiting for Benson and Stabler to get together, only to be disappointed episode after episode. But I was watching a lot of that because like I just kind of binge watched through series, and I had this idea, I was like, well, what if there was this like really kind of like free love hippie artist, really true to herself, completely anti-commitment girl who somehow gets dragged into something awful by an ex, and He does not have any clue about how much danger she's in or like how much trouble she could be in if she doesn't just shut up and stop answering questions she has no business answering. And there happens to be a lawyer at the precinct who's like, this girl is an idiot and I need to help. And she's like, but I don't need help because we're fine. He's like, you are so far from fine. It's ludicrous. And that was like the initial meet cute. And then of course he has a wedding he has to go to and she owes him a massive favor because he really did save her butt. So why not go with him? Because they have nothing in common. So there's nothing for them to worry about, obviously.
That is so creative. I love that it comes from Law and Order because people would be like, what?
It's always stuff like that. It's I hesitate to share this one sometimes because it's not directly from other authors, but every now and then you'll see people like pitch their book with one line and I'll read the book. Line. That didn't go the way I thought. And I was like, that doesn't mean the book is bad. That never means the book is bad. But it's like, wow, I took that one line and went a completely separate direction with that. Huh. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes that gets the wheels going like, well then, what if it did go the way I thought it went? Or like, didn't involve this, but involved that instead. And what if it was like completely different? The hockey romance is two fans of opposing teams who meet at a hockey game. They're seated next to each other and the kiss cam won't leave them alone.
Ooh.
So like that's the beginning of that one. A lot of them start with meet cutes or catalysts, this kind of like together and what happens next.
So what advice would you give other authors or people that want to become an author that are starting out in the romance genre?
My biggest advice is definitely read. So if you're going to write in a genre, if you're going to write anything in a genre, read in the genre. There are a lot of rules that are breakable and that I think are important to break, especially as like we find our voices as authors and we find our style. But there are rules that if you break them, people will come for you with pitchforks. Like, don't make your characters cheat on each other if it's a romance. Don't end without a happily ever after. There are ways to break those rules, but you have to know how to break the rule and like how to pitch it to your readers. But my other piece of advice, and I can't take credit for this because somebody else said it, I just don't know who, is you can fix anything but a blank page. So write it.
I've heard that. I don't know who it is either. So even if it's horrible, words on paper can be edited.
A horrible first draft or a horrible anything is better than nothing. And I know that that's advice that I've had to take to heart a lot because I have been guilty of being like, nope, it's not right. So now I'm stuck. But that doesn't matter. Just write it anyways, and you can go back to it later. And sometimes you never know.
You had mentioned something about the rules of romance. I mean, do you try and, you know how there's beat sheets, and if you've ever worked with an editor, they'll be like, chapter 29, this should happen. I mean, how do you follow a beat sheet? Do you use a beat sheet, or are you much more organic in the flow of the story?
I'm much more organic. I definitely have my own version of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm probably 4 books in now where it's like around chapter 16 things get spicy. It's kind of at the same point. But the only real rules, when I think of rules for romance, it's really like happily ever after. It should have a happily ever after. And there should be limited pining by the man for anybody other than the heroine, no matter how ridiculously long he's been waiting for her. And definitely he should not be cheating on her. And again, all rules are breakable.
Yeah.
If you know how to break them and when it works to break them so that you can lean into why.
Well, those are the elements that you're looking for in a good book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so those are what you're looking for, but what are the things that would be like a do not finish, a deal breaker?
So my only what?
Cheating. They can't be cheating.
I typically don't DNF books. I will rage finish a book before I DNF it.
Rage finish.
I'm also a mood reader though. So like there's a huge difference to me between being like, I'm just not interested, it's just not right for me right now, and like set like a maybe try again pile versus being like, no. I'm like really angry about it. And you really angry about it, I will rage read it. Like I won't put it down. I will force myself to finish it. Because yeah, I have been surprised before where like things that I thought were really angering me were for a reason I didn't expect or like came back around. Not usually. But some and I know how hard it is to like get to the end of writing the book. So like I'm angry about it. Personally, I typically don't leave like reviews below 4s unless I think it's like a problematic issue like racism or bigotry. So like I won't say anything about it, but the only caveat to that is that pregnancy for me is a really big trigger. I have 2 beautiful children now, but my husband and I struggled a very long time with fertility issues. Aww. And pregnancy is one of the things that I feel like comes up a lot in romance books with zero warning. And a blurb won't tell you. And when I say a trigger, it's like, it's not that I don't like it. It's like, I like start to shake. I'm in tears. I can't, like, I feel sick. So I avoid and I DNF any book that surprises me in that regard.
And that's very popular with surprise pregnancy. I had a reader with my book that's coming out in 2 weeks on the 23rd, Tomlin. You know, I write dark romance. There's a ton of triggers, triggering content. I'm very cognizant about putting the content more. I mean, if you go to my website, it literally will be very graphic in what they are. And so I had a reader reach out to me and she says, does this book have any pregnancy? And I said, we kind of skirt the edges. I said, there's exploited like a runaway child, you know, there's that. There's a couple that want to adopt a baby. So we kind of skirt the edges of, but there's no pregnancy directly. And so I appreciated her reaching out to me and being like, hey, because no author, well, in my opinion, no author wants to trigger any trauma or anything within the readers.
Yeah. And I think one of the hard parts about having a trigger that is based in pregnancy is that so many romance books, we were talking about beat sheets. And for a while, I think the common thing to do was an epilogue was to show them married and pregnant every time. And like, that's not super inclusive to couples that don't want children, don't want to get married. But then it would happen at the end of the book, or like it's an unexpected pregnancy, so they don't want you to know. And it's supposed to be a plot twist. And the problem that I've always found is like, if you get tricked once by an author, and by tricked, I mean like if I stumble into it and I haven't been warned that it's going to be there and there was like sometimes even the title, you're like, the word air is in this title. I have a suspicion about what might be in this one. And I know to avoid those. Yeah. My own personal sake. But like if I'm reading and I swear to God, it's always 3 chapters straight of like, she couldn't have a baby. Of course she couldn't get pregnant. And then suddenly you're like,
magically she does.
And then they, they're feeling sick in the morning and you throw the book across the room because you know what's coming, but it's not warned about. And so when that happens, then suddenly I don't trust any of that author's backlist. Yeah. Because it hasn't once. So like, I know that they're not warning about it. So what if it happens again? And so luckily for me, I'm not someone who cares too much about spoilers. So I search a lot of reviews to hope that somebody like spilled the beans somewhere so I know what to avoid. But every now and then, especially with pregnancy, because it's like considered part of what so many people, and I've had people say to me too that they want to see my characters like happy, married, and with kids. And sometimes it's just, I've had to say like, that's just not what I write, what I will write, and how I feel like writing, and that's okay.
Or sometimes it doesn't match the character's journey. I have one book out, another one this month, another one in April, and then I have 2 more. And I don't think I have a pregnancy in any of those. So that's what, 5 books? I'm just like, because my character characters are in their 20s, and there's a lot of people that they're not even finding who they want to marry, much less, start a family with. So
yeah, one of my most favorite authors of all time, she was quoted once. She was asked why she doesn't write sequels and why she will write like interconnected books, so you'll see characters come back into other books, but she doesn't write sequels. And she said that for her, when she writes a book, she is writing the most important moment in that couple's journey. And for the moment, it's them coming together. And that's not to say that getting married isn't important, and that's not to say that having babies isn't important, but that in that moment, she's writing the most important, and how can she then write another most important, because there's only one most important. And so that's the approach that I've always, like, it's always resonated with me, and I've always taken it. So yeah, I mean, like, yeah, some of my books, like, they're happy and they're together, but I fall a lot into the happily for now category. We all hope for the future, but like some of my characters are in their 20s too, and they just either kids aren't on the table. AJ's pretty clear, and Mother Knows Best, that kids are not something she's interested in, but sometimes it's not conducive for their time, or they've known each other 3 weeks, or it's just not a good idea.
And I feel like when you drop in the unexpected pregnancies into the storyline, if it doesn't fit, there's no authenticity.
Yeah.
And readers don't like that. I mean, I know that some are like, what's the lesson learned? And I'm like, I don't know if my books are teaching a lesson. I mean, they're supposed to entertain. That's why they're fiction.
I will also say that, like, prior to which made it a trigger, it was never something I liked reading either, because it would be like, I know for a fact that you don't feel happy and sexy when you're pregnant. Now I know for a fact from being on the other side of it, I were in a fever dream trying to keep children alive. Like there was no romance. There was no like, you beautiful vessel who birthed my babies. There was like, wow, you did that. Okay, like, I'm gonna fill your water bottle and then we're gonna pass out for 5 minutes before they need something again. Like the fluids that happen. It was just never something that appealed to me. And now
I always told my husband at the time, we're divorced, but I was like, I feel like we're those tag team wrestlers. It's just like,
yep.
And that's what yep. So, yep. I had like they were 2 years apart, yours are even closer together. And you're just like literally just tagging in and out to make sure like they're alive, they're healthy, and then you get some sleep, and yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, and I wouldn't change having my children, obviously, but like, no, it was just never something I wanted to read. Now it's something that I physically can't like get. And when I say can't, I mean, like, I cannot give the book a fair shake. I cannot give the characters a fair shake when I'm surprised by it. So like, it's not a good idea.
And that's okay. I mean, we don't, some people don't want to read Amish romance either.
Exactly. I mean, everybody has their things. Everybody has their things. So yeah, it's something that I will personally never write. If people want to believe that my characters get married and have 2.5 babies and they feel like writing, I don't know, obscure fan fiction about it, power to them. Like, I would never say no to that. I don't think we're anywhere near having fan fiction written about my books. But it will not happen in my own personal ones. So,
hey, if they want to write fan fiction, go for it.
Go to that. Go for it. I started in fan fiction. I think a lot of people did at some point, especially as young children or young teenagers, much younger than we probably should have been.
Okay, so I know we're past our hour. Do you have a little bit more time for me to ask a few more questions?
No, of course. I'm still here.
Okay, well, I know that your time is valuable. With those babies asleep, you may want to be able to write. But so what is your writing schedule and environment like? I feel like people always are curious. There's, do you write to music? Do you not? Do you write on the road? Do you have to have, total silence? Do you have to be at your workstation?
I'm a kind of, this probably helps with all the writing that I do, but I can kind of write anywhere, anytime. Because I write in Word and I have Office synced. That means I can like pull it up on my phone. I can pull it up on the iPad. I can have my computer. So at any point in time, I can open up whatever document I'm in and keep going. Um, I do have a writing space. I'm currently in my like old writing space, which is in a corner of my children's playroom, which ended up not being a conducive space because I would come down here and just get overwhelmed by how much I had to clean.
Kid stuff.
Yeah.
Kid gear.
So I have a very beautiful, adorable, I have like a photo of it on my feed, little writing space that I made in like our upstairs landing. And it's sweet and airy and light and I adore it. And the only reason I'm not up there right now is that my kids sleep off the landing. And so it was not the best place to have a conversation.
We're not waking up those babies. Once they're down, they're down.
But so I write there. Usually I write there during their nap time because
it's convenient.
Yeah, and I have to keep myself quiet because they're right there. And I know if they need something because I can hear them. But I mean, like, I am also a big proponent, especially once they're sleeping, of having a lap desk on the couch while my husband watches The Mandalorian or whatever he's into. So, like, we're having together time.
Nice.
And
yeah, fostering your marriage.
Yes. So, but I can still work. Or, you know, when we go to do school drop-off and I'm sitting in the pickup line or the drop-off line, I can, like, pull up on my phone and type stuff.
Oh, God. Car line?
Silence. I don't think I know what silence is anymore. In fact, I think silence is more terrifying to me than noise. That's probably because of two toddlers.
Yeah, when they're silent, you're like, uh-oh.
Like, wait a minute. Everybody went quiet. What happened?
Exactly.
But yeah, I usually have like a show that's being binge watched and some music playing. And I have like a book that I'm reading and whatever I'm writing. And I just kind of cycle through. So like I do a sprint and then I like read a little bit, or I like tag into whatever I'm watching, or I like scroll social media a little and then I start over.
You have like all this sensory overload, but it works for you.
It does. It really does. It works up until the moment where suddenly it doesn't and I need everything like shut down in minutes. But yeah, it works. I've always been, even when I was a kid though, like I couldn't sleep unless I had something playing, usually audiobooks. So
okay, so Easter eggs, do you like them in books? Do you write them in yours? How do you feel about Easter eggs?
I do like them. I guess when I'm writing them, I don't think of them so much as Easter eggs as I think of them as just like ties. And some people will recognize them and some won't. And that's okay. Like that doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I like to leave Easter eggs in my formatting and like in my design for my books.
Oh, okay. So explain that.
There's an Easter egg. If anybody sees the paperback version of The Trope, there's an Easter egg in my chapter heading. So actually I have it here. So like I have these little chapter headings. And they change partway through the book, and that's a little bit of an Easter egg.
Ooh, that is so genius.
So far I've had 2 people figure it out and comment on it. One person figured it out and was like, is this an Easter egg? Does this mean something? And then I like publicly shared that there was an Easter egg and someone else figured it out, which was like, but like, does it mean anything? No, not really. Like it doesn't, you can read the books without knowing.
No, but it's fun because, you know, we as writers, we create these characters, we create these worlds. And I know like your husband isn't in there with you, but your mom and dad are, and your ordained minister. But when other people get in that world and feel the way you wanted or you intended to have them feel, I mean, it's amazing. It's hard to describe that feeling. And Easter eggs to me are an extension of that. Yeah.
I love so it's little things, or I guess this would qualify as an Easter egg. There's a moment in The Trope where they talk about a TV show they're watching and show that AJ and Will are on in Mother Knows Best. At the time that it was released, most people hadn't read Mother Knows Best, but it was like a couple of my like readers who had helped with Mother Knows Best were like, oh my God. This is it.
Do you have an ARC team? I know you have, the 3 you mentioned. Do you have an ARC team or a beta team or street team?
I have a small beta team. It's like a group of 5 women that I feel very, very comfortable with. I have, my mom is an alpha, and I have one pretty solid critique partner whom I call her my writing soulmate. I love her beyond all else. And then I do have a nice, like, solid ARC team. It has been growing, especially now that I've had 2 books out. It's been nice to get people who've now ARCed for both of them and have loved both, and like have been like, please, 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 I want to do more, which has been wonderful. And I don't have a street team, but that's because my ARC readers have been so wonderful about being a street team, and like our little group is such a good street team on its own.
Nice.
And really nice to kind of start to make those like recurring connections.
And it's hard. I know that many authors struggle with betas and ARCs. So do you want to talk about how you got yours? Because 5 betas is kind of a lot. And then how many ARCs you have? Do you want to share?
Yeah. So for when I was first doing the trope, I like asked a lot of people what to do with betas. And I think at one point I ended up with like 10 beta readers.
That's a lot.
It was too many. It was too many. And I think I went with that number because so many people were like, oh, a lot of them won't get back to you, right? Which is true. Things happen. Except they all got back to me, and they all had, a lot of them had different things to say.
Oh my gosh, that would be overwhelming.
Very overwhelming. And I was in fact so overwhelmed that I like cried about it to a friend who was like, I hire beta readers. And so she gave me the names of 2 women that I actually hired because she did. And so there was this, like, I was like, I'm going to take the parts that they like, I'm going to see what they say, because this is something that they do regularly. And provided me with like a very professional, like 2-page summary of like what worked, what didn't, chapter by chapter, what they liked and didn't. They did really well. They did not know each other. Like, they're separate from each other, but they aligned really well. And both of them are strictly readers, not authors. And so then I went through and looked at the beta readers who had found a lot of similar things to them and put a lot more weight onto their feedback. And that's not to say that not everybody's feedback is valid and important, but like, we can't please everybody. So it helped me down on like what was going to be the most almost like mass market advice for the book. And like,
well, commonality. Some of them all hit on the same thing, and then you have your little like one-offs.
Yeah. And so, and it's easier to know, because like if 2 people are telling you to do opposite things, you have the choice to do either or to do nothing, because ultimately it's all up. So that was helpful. So now I have like 3 people that you know all had enough different to say that it was valuable to hear from all of them, but weren't so far off of each other that I was like, I don't know what to do.
I don't know how to fix it.
Yeah. But I do. So 3 of them, like, I beta for and they beta for me. We like go back and forth. And then I have the 2 that I do hire, because I do like getting that professional write up and like the details that just, I mean, like, it's a lot to ask for from somebody. And I mean, like, they're like $20. It's like not a ton.
That's only $20?
Yeah. So for me, it's like, it's a worth it expense.
Easily worth it.
And again, just like, you know, their job is to give me feedback.
Yeah.
So I take it.
And then your ARCs. So how did you get your ARC team?
So for my ARC team, when I did the trope, was like complete disaster. And not by disaster, I mean like it went really well, but I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. I just posted on like a bunch of social media sites that was like, hi, if you kind of like this stuff and you want to ARC read a book, let me know. And like, I'm pretty sure I sent that book and like didn't even ask questions. I was just like, here's the book, thanks, bye.
Yeah.
And with the trope, I like was a little more careful about like, okay. And of course I was that crazy author too, who was like, do you prefer to read paperbacks or ebooks? Because I'll send a paperback if you want a paperback.
Wow.
25 paperbacks with the trope. And so I was keeping track, not of what people were saying necessarily, unless they like told me to read it, but like, okay, who responds? Like, were the paperbacks worth it? Did I get better response from people who got paperbacks? Like, were they to actually remember and leave a review. And I was finding that when I sent out a paperback book, people were more likely to review it and also more likely to post about it and share it, because it's so much easier to like hold it up. Yeah. So that worked really well for me. And then by keeping track of who it was, when the time came, and like I posted all over the place, like in some author groups I'm in, and like some of those, there's like some reader groups that are for ARC and beta readers. I posted on like TikTok. I wasn't on Instagram at the time, so I like didn't know what to do. And so then when Mother Knows Best came, the first place I went was to the ARC readers that I knew had followed through,
right,
regardless of what their reviews had been. If they had followed through and reviewed the trope, I sent them an email and said, I have another book, are you interested? But also like, please make sure, like, here's the blurb, if you are interested in this book and have the time, like, please let me know. And so I had a lot of repeat ARC readers for Mother Knows Best, which was great.
That is wonderful.
Yeah. And then I also got a bunch of people who didn't ARC read the trope, but had read the trope. And so then when I like blasted out about needing readers for the second one, they were like, well, I liked the first one, I'd love to read the second one. So that went really well. And then after having the two, I had someone who came to me and said, can I be a permanent ARC reader for you?
What a compliment, though. I mean, I would be just like, oh my gosh, of course.
Yeah. So I started putting together like a list.
Yeah.
And my deal was, you know, yes, you can be a permanent ARC reader, but for me, permanent means that when I have a book, I will automatically reach out to you. But there is no shame in saying this book doesn't appeal to me, or I don't have it now, or like I can't for whatever reason. Like that is still acceptable. And yeah, so far it's been really, really nice. But I'm also one of those authors who, like, if somebody asks me for my book, I don't worry too much about sending them a copy, which I know is like, I'm in a position to be able to do that. I know not everybody can just be like, yeah, sure, here, have a free copy, whatever. But I am. So
that is very generous, because it does get expensive. You know, there's your cost, you know, not only to produce the book, but also to ship it.
Yeah. So it helps to ship it media mail. That definitely brings things down. And I do limit it so that like my ARC readers who are getting paperbacks have to be in the US, because I just can't afford to send it overseas. But yeah, so far, in my opinion, in like my own personal experience, it has done really well, because I do have a very high, I feel like, review rate. And I don't mean like they're loving my book and favorably reviewing. I just mean like the people who are literally reviewing it after receiving the free copy, or like sharing information about it. Mother Knows Best actually ended up being pretty funny, because the ARCs I sent out all had like the old cover before I switched it, and then the cover printed. And so I was like, it's a little off, I'm so sorry. But then I had all these extra books that I wasn't comfortable selling because it was like misprinted on the back. And so I like actually sent out even more. I was like, I've got paperbacks, who wants one? Like, up for grabs, have fun.
Oh, that is so sweet, so generous.
Well, and then I changed the cover, and one of my ARC readers was like, so are you telling me I now have a special edition signed copy? Like, yeah, sure.
Yes, yes, you do. Yeah, I planned it that way.
I thought people ask if they can order the original cover, and I'm like, I don't have any, I'm sorry.
Why did it change?
So part of the reason it changed, I draw my own covers, like, not to toot my own horn, but I draw my own cover.
You did Mother Knows Best cover?
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Thank you.
Okay, so you draw it, and then how do you, like, what do you put in, like, Photoshop, or how does that?
I draw on my iPad in Procreate.
Okay.
And then I use Canva to like format it to be the size and dimension that it should be.
No way. Okay, show us.
Okay, so I published the trope first.
Did you draw the trope?
Yeah.
Girl.
This one's...
I can't even draw, like, you know, mine is like a stick figure, and you're over there with all the detail.
So yeah, so I mean, like, it helps that they're faceless. I've had
still, hands and faces are hard.
Yeah, I've people be like,
silhouette,
because I can't draw faces. That's why, and I can't I can't afford an illustrator, but I wanted illustrated covers. And so like this is the new, oh, it looks a little funky in the lighting out here, but in my lighting, but this is the new cover of Mother Knows Best. I don't think I have the original one anymore. Not down here. But the original was like a close-up of her face. And I loved the picture, but it didn't read romance. It didn't read rom-com. Like there was no couple.
Was it?
It didn't.
Illustrated or was it an actual picture?
No.
Oh, okay.
Illustrated. But it didn't tell you what the book was about. It didn't read right. Like it didn't read right for the genre. It didn't read right for what it was. And it didn't match the trope. Mm-hmm. Like it didn't go together. Which wasn't the biggest deal until I planned the cover for the Escalation Clause and On Ice, which are the June and October books. And then Mother Knows Best really stuck out as being completely different from the others, like just not even in the same ballpark. Like this is by somebody different. And it mattered to me because like, A, they're all by me. I want someone to like, I'd love for someone to walk in and see a book and without seeing my name, be like, I know that's a Stella. Like, you know, Emily Henry's books all look. You can look at them and you're like, I know who wrote these.
Totally. There's so many. I mean, what do they call it? The word Regency. I know we use it as far as like Regency romance, but there's also what they say like Regency, right? So your brand should have a Regency to it, so that way people know it's you.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. It's branding. So yeah, with like 3 weeks to go, I was like, well, I'm not happy with it, but I don't have an alternative, so I drew one and went for it.
I love that cover. I would be curious to see. You should do a like a before and after is an hour or something like that, because I think a lot of people would be fascinated to see what you had. You know, some authors do that, right? They show like the progression of like, here's where I started and here's what I end up with, and it's kind of not. It's like a behind the scenes.
Actually, so this is
you should do a post on social for that.
I have some of the originals when I was playing around with the trope. And this was the original.
Oh, the Ferris wheel in the background.
Yeah, and a bunch of books. And then but so this quite a bit.
You need to do a post on the, you know, before and after. They're so fascinating.
And for a while, it was this one.
Oh my gosh.
Right? Right?
So different.
So different.
It's like
this one.
I can't unsee it.
Right? This one here. Well,
I love that one better.
Yeah, it was a better fit. It was a better choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a much better choice. But then I needed the others to kind of fall in line, if you will.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. I need that back.
Okay, so we've been on for a while. I'm going to ask you rapid fire questions.
Yes.
So are you ready?
Yes.
Super under pressure. Okay, paperback or e-reader?
E-reader. Mostly just, I have to clarify because I feel like my reputation's on the line. It's because I read all the time everywhere and I cannot carry as many paperbacks as I need.
Oh my gosh, you're carrying your 2 babies, you got the diaper bag, you got all their stuff. I mean,
I buy the trophy.
I used to always I used to call myself the pack mule.
Yep.
You know, like the dads are like the show ponies and they're at the front and they're just like walking by themselves, and then us moms have all the, like a pack mule in the back.
Yep, exactly.
Plotting or pantsing?
In the middle. I have to admit that it's probably more plotting, even with my like brain just kind of doing its thing.
But not like on a full 70-page detailed outline plot.
Like a plantsing.
Plantsing.
Sing.
I don't know which is the difference.
Somewhere in the middle.
First person or third person?
Third person.
Third person deep or?
A third person close. So the kind of third person that could be switched out with first person with very little issue, but I prefer third.
Present tense or past?
fast.
Plot driven or character driven?
Oh, both. I like a good plot, but ultimately, especially in romance, it's about the characters. And if I don't like the characters in my own writing or what I'm reading,
And we already talked about, you won't put it down. You'll just rage read.
We'll rage read it.
We talked about this, writing alone or writing with a partner or group.
Writing alone.
You kind of already have your own built-in. You've basically birthed your group.
Well, so like I like being with people and I like having people read it, but like after I've done it.
Yeah.
Like, let me sit in the room with me. Don't talk to me because everything else is going. But then let me do it.
Yeah. Outline or discovery writing?
A little bit of both. Like I have a mini outline, and then my characters do what they want to do whenever they want to do it.
Little rebels.
Really. Dirty rebels.
And we talked about this already, right? In silence or with music. And yours is way more than just music. It's what?
Million chaos things. Spotify, and right now we're watching Grey's Anatomy, in case anyone was wondering. So Grey's Anatomy and Spotify, and the cat yowling, and my husband talking to me about Magic the Gathering, and me writing, and like a book.
All at the same time.
Yes.
Writing with a deadline or at your own pace?
At my own pace. This deadline stuff is not for me.
They can stress you out. I'm under a really aggressive deadline, and I'm like, oh, why'd I do this?
I can't. I mean, like, I can. I've totally had those moments where my editor's been like, if you get it to me in 3 days, like by the end of the week, I can do it now, or it's going to wait 2 months. And I'm like, I will get it to you by the end of the week, and I can do that. But it's not pretty. Like me, I'm not pretty.
No, you're beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
It's like an interview.
Series or standalone?
I like standalones, but I like them to be connected. So like you're meeting the same people or similar people, but that they could all be read. I like to read series out of order because I'm a chaos demon.
Historical setting, present day or future?
Present. I do like a good historical romance. I just feel like I'm not a good enough history student. Like I never was a good enough history student to really get it. But the caveat would be Highlander romances, because who doesn't love a man in a kilt?
Oh my gosh, that series Outlander, I have gotten everybody on it. I'm like, have you seen it? I have recruited for like that whole series myself.
Beautiful. Love. Ugh. Sam Heughan.
I know. Let's just stare at him.
Just go to Scotland again.
I'm like,
wonderful.
Where is this? Can I get some of these? Where do I find one of these?
Mm-hmm. Right. I went with my husband, and I kept being like, "You go stand over there, because you never know."
We're brother sister. You didn't know.
Related. We don't know each other.
Well, it has been so wonderful to get to know you. Such an inspiration. Your books are so sweet. I love those covers. You're just so talented.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's been really, really wonderful to talk to you. And I can't wait to read Tomlin when it comes out. I'm really excited.
Thank you. It is a slow burn. We already talked about, content warnings. And so there'll be, I just couldn't let those characters go. And it is a series. They're, very interconnected. So you really do need to read them in order. And I have one beta who's absolutely brutal. Absolutely brutal.
Artist, but sometimes the best.
So I cut, I think, 60,000 words. She's like, too much of this, too much of that. I mean, she is brutal. And then I have one who's like, I love everything. So I was like, that's my hype girl. I will keep on my beta team.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I'd like to do this again.
Yeah.
So I'm going to DM you. We can do some dates. And then that way when we get closer to your June, then we can do a whole another one and talk about that book and what else you're working on. Because knowing you could I've already written like 2 more books.
Next time we talk, I'll have like 5 more to go.
I know. Like, and let me show you all my covers.
I'll get them in order.
Yeah. So this will go up on YouTube.
Okay.
And then I'll send it to you via like Dropbox because it takes time for Instagram to process this.
No worries.
And then, you share whatever pieces you want as well.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Stella. It's been a wonderful night with you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.